Hello, everyone. I'm Darian Gold, and welcome to All Things Pilates Season 6. As we dig deeper into the life of a contrologist, this season's guest list shares what the Pilates methodology can offer to anyone who desires health and wellness. On this show, we'll explore, seek, and investigate what's possible when we incorporate contrology into our lives. When I was going through the certification program with Romana Kryzanowska in 1994, she told us that the reformer workout always began with footwork because Joe, while developing his method, created footwork to help his bowed legs and to help straighten them out. But he had other ideas as to how footwork would be beneficial for the body. As we know, he was interested in the body's full transformation and healing, and the Chinese arts came into play. It's reported that Joe's intention of infusing reflexology into the footwork exercises meant that by massaging the various points in the feet, the internal organs would be stimulated. Additionally, Romana's view of footwork was we could find it throughout the system, no matter what apparatus. Joining me today is my friend and colleague, Susannah Cotrone, co-owner of Cotrone Pilates in Los Angeles. Susannah and I come from the same Pilates school, and I think you'll be interested in hearing our thoughts about footwork's role in our teaching. Hello, Susannah. Welcome to All Things Pilates.
Hi, Darian. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Susannah, before Pilates came into your life, you were a ballet dancer. What are some of the feet challenges a ballet dancer experiences?
Well, gosh, I think the first and foremost thing is that in ballet, we have to articulate our feet to a point. And from when you're very young, you're working to achieve that because ballet is about lines. So think of it as like your eyeliner, it's the end of the line. And if it's not perfect, it doesn't transfer the art as nicely. So when you're passionate about art, and what you're doing with it, you want it to be as the best it can be, which can, lead you to perfectionism, which is terrible. But if you can learn to use your feet intelligently, you can effectively create that line.
No matter if you have flat feet or not.
Now, that is a great question, okay? Because initially you would go, forget it, go home, try something else, game online. But as I get older, I think like if there is a technique, okay, why can't everyone learn the technique? Their physicality will maybe eliminate the ease of becoming a professional, but there could be a joy gained or not. Maybe you just decide it's too frustrating to simply try and articulate your feet to create your line. That's my grown-up thoughts these days.
So when I ask you about the feet challenges, the challenge becomes because the feet, like the eyeliner, they create the last little bit of a full line. And so the challenge would be you could have a beautiful turnout, but hideous feet. So you have to work on creating that beautiful in line. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. And so how would you do that, right? My experience is that ballet will tell you what it wants, but it doesn't always tell you how to get what it wants. So that's why these, modalities of Pilates and specialized trainers, if you will help you get what you need out of your feet. And then here are the indicators, like you said, flat feet or pain or simply weakness. And I think lately, a lot of my practices come down to seeing everything as a weakness, no matter how strong you are.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So you can be strong, or you can be stronger than the person next to you, or stronger than you were last week. But are you strong enough to achieve your goal? And that's pretty plain. And if you are a hypermobile person, which a lot of ballet dancers tend to be, you will immediately gravitate towards cheating because it's easy, because inherently we want to do the thing, but how much energy do we want to spend on it? We want to conserve so we can do more things. So hypermobility tends to be a wonderful thing to help you with your eyeliner, but it can also be a problem because it's very difficult to strengthen a hypermobile joint because a person that isn't hypermobile, they find the wall. That's where it ends.
For the floor.
The hypermobile person is trying to find where this joint is going to stop. So if you have to tell someone you have to stop before your full mobility would end, that's hard because other people just come to the end of it and theirs just keeps going and going. So pros and cons, right? Pretty lines, weak. So you have to learn to strengthen it.
Did you ever injure your foot or ankle when you were dancing?
Yep. I broke my ankle and my right ankle, and I had surgery on it, and I broke my left fifth metatarsal doing a cabriole.
Can you explain to the audience who may not have had any kind of dance or ballet, what's a cabriole?
A cabriole is essentially a jump, okay, like a petit allegro, and you kind of extend one leg forward. This is not a high kicking step. You extend it forward, and the bottom leg comes up to kind of click against it. And it was I was tired, and I was, we tend to have a weak side, and I was pushing through. And as that bottom foot came up to touch the top foot, it came down and rolled to the side. And baby, I went down, snap-a-doodle, bad break, crawled to the side.
And that's a lesson for people who push too far when they're tired.
I learned it. I keep trying to remember that I already learned it.
Yes.
How
did you actually heal from that particular injury?
Well, that was an interesting time because literally, I think 3 days later, we were going to shoot the second round of Windsor Pilates videos. And this time around, we were incorporating a TheraBand. And I had negotiated a contract to come back at, double the rate because, the first one was so successful and they wanted, the team back together. We're all excited. And I broke my damn foot. And it's black. It's black and blue, like horrible. And now everything's in motion. Rehearsals have happened. Everything's ready to go. What am I going to do? And they essentially kind of were like, we need you to sign this paper that says you're not going to sue us, right? And we're going to let you do it. But you are 100% responsible for yourself. So what I did was I went to
foundation.
I went to a makeup store. Yeah. And I got myself some very intense makeup and I covered that foot and I did those videos.
Were you in pain?
Yes. And worse than pain, I felt I wasn't representing myself in the best way possible. I was fake, but it is Pilates. It wasn't ballet. I was on my back. I was on my side. If we were standing, I could cheat that a little bit. But every time we would push out into those TheraBands, I would be like, Jesus Christ.
Oh, you needed some pain meds.
I probably took some, I think. I don't know.
Well, you were a younger lady when you were dancing. And so when you came down from your jump and you twisted your ankle, did you rest? You iced, you put the ankle up, or did you just keep going?
Okay, so there's the two breaks. So that one I was telling you about was the fifth metatarsal break on the left foot. The first break was the talus bone in my right ankle. So, we understand the ankle, there's talus bone, the talus bone slides back and forth. The ankle's a tricky joint. My talus, the tail of my talus came out this way. I don't have a deep demi-plie, there's bony things that are there. And so I was partnering. It was a two guys and a girl thing. My hands were on their shoulders and they were to slide me across the floor. And as I slid across the floor, I didn't slide. The bottom foot caught the floor and pushed over, causing the tail of that talus to fracture. That fracture, little pieces of bone into the tendon. And it was horribly painful. And my ballet director at the time said, if you can't get up and do it, we'll get someone else. And I thought, I better get up and do it because this is like my big moment, it's like my career is taking off and this is my big thing. I'm very excited to be showcased in this way. And no, I'm not going to let anybody else take this part. And so I went on to dance on it for quite a while until one day I was in class, doing my that's why it was so familiar when the TheraBand came out. because I was so used to, cheating on one side. So I would do these passe releves and I would just get off of that foot as fast as I could. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, my ankle looks like a Coke can, so swollen. And so finally I had to succumb and get the surgery. And they
Oh,
had to pull those bone fragments out of the tendon and go through a lot of PT.
how long was the PT process?
It was an emotional process and long, but those days, they put it in a cast and they was like, see you later. We'll see you in 6, 8 weeks. And then they take the cast off and they're like, walk. And you're like, walk?
What?
It looks like a toothpick and I haven't stepped on it, a long time. So then I went to PT and I remember there were a lot of range of motion things and obviously strength things. So I learned a lot about rehab from that perspective, my personal perspective. And I think I had a tremendous PT. I think I actually kind of fell in love with him. I thought he was, did he say he was helping me? He was saving me. That was my first experience with that kind of feeling like I'm so grateful to this person guiding me through this really scary thing and keeping me positive and encouraging me and applauding my improvements and progress.
Yes. Susannah, today we're delving into footwork, the literal foundation of the method. How do you define footwork?
Footwork, how do I define it? It's a great opener, isn't it?
Very much.
It's a great way to see the body you're about to lead through Pilates. You can learn so much in those moments. It's not overly complicated for the person doing the footwork, but it's this overload of information for the person that's about to teach. You see what came in off the road and it helps you ask a question that they weren't thinking about telling you about: their back, their knee, their ankle, their heel, their shoulder. The whole thing is just right there for you. So I think that's a great gift that footwork gives us.
Where do you prefer to teach footwork initially? Is it the reformer or?
I mean, I guess I would say it's the reformer, depending, sometimes if knees are tricky, the chair.
The Wanda chair.
Because I don't have to give a lot of dialogue about wild hyperextension or sore knees or whatever. So they don't go through that full extension of the knee just yet. So that would be my only difference. But yes, the reformer.
Do you teach footwork differently, speaking of which, in terms of how you describe the positions of the feet? Do you use different terminology or imagery with a beginner opposed to an advanced practitioner?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when you ask me that question is, there's all these things that we've learned how to do things. And when you deviate because you feel like you need to deviate, I always feel a little naughty, oh, did anybody see that? I have this thing that I do sometimes with a new client, and if it's truly new, someone that just they don't know, here they are. And sometimes men in particular, but not always. I start them on their arches. Putting people on their toes, kind of out of the gate can be just a lot. They're telling you some life story or something of why they're there. And I've got my hands on there. I let them push out in a neutral, like they're taking a free throw on the line. It's not as intimidating.
I think when I had my first few lessons, this is back in 92, I think the teacher always had me start on my heels.
There you go. So she was trying to get you probably connected, right?
Yes.
Off of your ballet toes and
yes,
into your posterior chain.
Yes.
Well, cool. Now I don't feel so bad.
No, I love the idea of arches, but do people cramp right away? Do they cramp up?
Well, no. I haven't really seen much cramping with that, but I could see how that, like, whoa, that's a lot. Then there's me with the springs, right? If it's that person, I probably put them on 3 and just I got to get a look and see what's doing. And if I get a auditory, like that's easy or something, I go, oh yeah, great. And then you're going right back to the program.
Ah, okay. If you have an advanced practitioner or a professional athlete, Do you go to one spring? Do you start that person on one spring opposed to four?
See, if I'm really trying to get someone to engage in that way, I probably would address their pinky toe and challenge them to try and get that pinky toe up on the bar to work on the extension of the outside of the foot. And you hear a lot of ballet dancers point shoes like, oh, I don't, da, 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 da. I'm like, oh, we're going to try. But like the heel approach, kind of gets them thinking about it a little differently, try and find that tripod, that balance in the foot instead of just showing me how they can push out. Now, one spring, that's a good one to grab them in the powerhouse, right? To get them to slow down and stay.
Get out of their
toes.
quads.
So, exactly. That's a great one. Yeah, I love that.
That's a Romana thing. She said from the very beginning, I seem to remember that if you have a strong guy, she never said strong woman, but if you have a strong guy that comes to you, she says you put them on one spring, never four springs, because they'll just go to their big muscles.
No, Darren, you nailed it. And what are they immediately going to tell you? This isn't heavy. Do you have more springs? What is this? And you're like, well, how can I?
Pilates is so easy.
It's like you will be working the mat today.
Yes.
Footwork with no reformer. Go.
Yes. A lot of times when I am working with someone like that, I put the foot bar down and then I put my hands where the foot bar would be. And I'd say, okay, so push into me, find the resistance. And then I step away and then they do their footwork and they're dying because now it's all your middle work.
It's genius. That's playing with the footwork is how we're going to get connected. How are we going to get to what you need to strengthen? Also, I just add that standing, I like to play around with standing footwork, for balance. That's a lot of fun to see people kind of try and take that reformer. We talk about that, like when you're on the reformer, it should be as you are standing. And if that conceptually doesn't make any sense to them, well, let's stand and try some of this reformer work. Toes is an easy one to find. There's that Kuna board for, the rest of it, various little tools to get them a little more focused on, not just lying down. Like, how can I challenge you? Is always the footwork gives you like, what am I going to do? How am I going to challenge these people?
And are they understanding how you are explaining footwork, the reasons behind footwork? Does it compute to them that we first deal without gravity? We lie down, we find the feet position, and then we find our center of gravity in the middle of our body. Do they understand that is then translated to standing?
Well, I think, for instance, the toes would be more where that's going to be found, right? Heels could be interesting, if you've got your toes up in the air, okay, now we're working our feet, right? We're really pulling back. We're not just chill. So balance tends to get people to use their core, right? Similar to one spring, all of a sudden, it's not so solid anymore. So anything that can challenge just someone from just being casual or relaxed, I think, yes, that would do to make them go, oh, okay, now I'm going to try and take that onto the reformer. Now, they're doing it or understanding it sometimes takes time, right? People don't get things all at once, or curiosity.
Are they patient with you, or do they say they just want to do a workout?
With me personally, I'm patient with them. And if somebody wants to do a workout, then if it's that, like, I gotta do this, or I gotta do that, or I just came from Rome and I've done 50,000 steps, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z. We got to work out for everybody.
Or I'm going to a wedding next weekend and I need my arms to be more chiseled like yours. I got that a lot.
Arms out all the time. That's so funny. Yeah, we have a lot of, what do I call it? The vacation workout, but they want to work abs and upper body.
Oh, the weekend warriors.
Yeah, or the people that just walk and they think, they're not seeing it as a whole. And they're like, I don't want to do leg work. And I'm like, great, that's fine. We don't have to do leg work. But those are people that I know. We can work around their needs for sure.
Do you talk about the different exercises that footwork shows up in? Like I was saying in the intro, how Romana would talk about footwork is seen throughout the system. do you keep coming back to why footwork is so integral as a beginning exercise?
I do, particularly if I see something that they're not achieving, it's not connecting. Like for instance, the 100, right? I love it when you push out on your toes and you're like, that's where your legs should be for the 100, right? So now they see their legs in that position, and hopefully they can, duplicate that without the bar, kind of like what you were saying. And sometimes they can't, but if they needed to, they would need to hold their center, right? So let's draw those two comparisons, feel how you feel there when the stakes are higher, and try and bring that in here. And later, we'll flip it over for the long stretch. And, maybe when that one foot is out in your single leg stretch, every time you can find that position, building a technique and giving them tools to strengthen their core, their powerhouse.
It's interesting that you bring up the word technique, because I think that those of us who danced technique dance, everything really was about alignment and placement. And I hate to say it, but perfection. It's a hard word for those of us who are perfectionists. But I am seeing a lot of imperfection and lack of technique out in social media, and it seems to be sort of accepted and the norm. I'm wondering what you think about that, because without technique, eventually you're going to get injured.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about that. I try and put it into categories, subcategories, like movement is good. Sitting on your sofa is not good, right? So if we can encourage people to move from just a health, good for you standpoint, hurrah. And people get injured doing lots of things. So I won't be overly particular about that. But to your point about technique, if we can get people, okay, so now let's see, they're doing some Pilates, we look at it and that's not Pilates, or that's Pilates light, or whatever it is. But now they've moved into something that now they're doing that. So if you have curiosity about things, or you're lucky enough to find someone that can kind of lead you down that path, I think it's wildly interesting to learn how to do Pilates well and how to control your body to do a thing the way somebody said, right? So that in of itself, intellectual interest and the physical payoff is enough to say, I want to do this for me, whether it's ballroom dancing, Pilates, ballet, piano, opera, right? You can sing opera in your shower. Good for you. But you could maybe be trained to do it even better because you're passionate about it. And that you can share with other people. I think that is a natural progression of learning something and then mastering something.
So technique shouldn't be looked at as something to veer away from because
No,
it's hard. Because I also hear that, oh, this work is too hard, but they still want to feel like they are getting something in their body. But there's a little resistance to digging in that deep. But this is where the magic is.
I know. You just have to be a wizard at leading people to what you need them or want them, or what essentially they need and want, right? How do you get someone who's stubborn or difficult, or I don't even mean as a person, like maybe they have hangups about being told to do something, or the other thing I see is people who already know everything, right? And at points in my life, I didn't want to be told things and I already knew everything.
Hey everyone, want to level up your teaser? When I'm not interviewing or editing, I'm helping students just like you get to the next level. If you'd like to understand the Contrology technique, come learn from me, whether online or in person. Just know I'm here and happy to help. Now, back to the interview.
So I always try and be patient with people and go away from something that there's resistance, or if I feel like, I can get just a little bit more information in there. So I guarantee you every single one of those clients in a year or so is asking me questions about how to do it better and well, and what's the difference. And now we're talking, right? We're exchanging ideas about how to do something. I think that's what keeps me coming back, progressing, teaching. progressing people, listening to people. I like the tough cases. They're more fun.
Yes. Yes. It's good for our brain.
Yes.
Getting back to the feet, because I bet you everyone who's listening can look down at their feet and know that there's some place in the foot, whether it's by the toes or in the back of the heel, that needs a little work. And maybe footwork on the reformer, maybe they don't develop and evolve to a degree that they would recognize that footwork is the foundation. So do you have other foot exercises? I know you have the balance board, but are there foot exercises in the Contrology system that are your go-to exercises when you're not getting what you need from that student with footwork on the reformer, for example?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the foot corrector is an obvious place to take a client. I have a little story about that. I was working with a guy, his feet are a big challenge for him, and he's interested in digging in, I'm saying, haha, your feet are a big challenge. It's like people are sensitive about their feet, they're vulnerable and yet they want to fix them. Nobody wants to fall. What is this, a hammer toe? What is this, a bunion? Whatever it is. Okay. So we got to get in there and we want to be polite about it. And I had our foot corrector and I hadn't greased it up in a while. And I was telling him, the sound, you want to listen to the sound because when it screeches and grinds, it means you're not having good balance in your foot. And we'll just start with the arch or the heel or whatever. And it was just screeching and going on and on. And he just would not, well, he didn't want to stop. He was like, I can do this, I can do this. And I was like, you can do it, you can do it. Dear Lord. The next day I sprayed it with lubricant and I came back and I was like, oh,
Poor guy.
David. Now it's it's
Quiet.
your best friend. It's going up and down. So I want to say with the foot corrector, there's two wonderful things about the foot corrector. Obviously pressing into it like a massage, using it to strengthen your foot in all the different ways is wonderful. But that auditory cue of you want to have those springs go up and down on those posts without hitting it, and that thing goes side to side and forward and back. And you can control that. And if you're interested in trying to control that, then that can be a fun puzzle for you, figuring out how to do it carefully. And if you don't, I'll spray it and then you can just get the other benefit.
That's interesting. It's same with the cue when you are doing standing arm springs at the Cadillac facing out and you're doing, let's say, hug a tree, and you listen to how the arms open. If one spring is closing before the other, you can hear it. So this whole thing about keeping our ears open, I wonder if Joe talked about that, because we know we have the eye chart and we have something with the jaw, but I wonder if he did anything with the ears.
Well, I mean, listen, he's got springs all over the place, right? So when you're dealing with a person that's slamming the carriage, looks pretty indestructible, it's not going to bounce off if you do it. But if you can get someone to understand the point of it, you could call it etiquette. Nobody likes to hear a bang. But if you can control the end of the closing of the spring in all things, how amazing is that? That's incredible control. It slows things down a bit, but that is probably at the forefront of my mind in my workouts. How specifically can I move this spring? You can be rough with it, that's fine. But over time, I'm going to teach you to make that probably your most important concern.
Closing the spring is it.
Yeah.
How you close the spring.
I mean, he had to have been thinking of that.
Yes. And do you think, I don't want to put it in two camps because we're trying to bring the Contrology mindset into the world, but we do have a contemporary modern approach. And then, of course, we have the traditional approach.
Yes.
I wonder, teachers have been taught to listen to how the springs close. If that's an element that's important in their training.
I would doubt it. I don't think so. And I think some of that equipment is probably designed to not bang. Maybe they found a way to soften that up.
So that means the body is not getting the kind of depth then.
Well, I think the work might be not as precise, right? So
The
you,
work would be on the out of the opening of the spring. It's the work
yeah,
perhaps is not emphasized on the in, which is where we learned the work is.
right. No, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people, joyfully slamming the carriage. Slamming might be a tough word, but, happily going in and out. And that's where I always circle back to you're moving, you're doing good. That's great. And maybe you'll have an exposure and maybe you'll have a question, or maybe your body or maybe your injury will lead you to this other thing. But it's not for everyone, I don't think. I mean, Pilates is for everyone, but the pursuit of maybe somebody would consider it minutia, but I think it's the center. But you can't go. I don't think you could have told me that when I was younger. I don't know. I was very interested. Also, I started with the mat work, so that's different. Like, because they used to not let kids on the equipment.
Oh, say more about that. What do you mean, kids, age group?
Well, because I started at the Houston Ballet School, and they had Pilates equipment downstairs, and we were going to the studio, but they said we were not allowed on the equipment. And I remember there was a thing like you had to be a certain height to be on the reformer, and there were rules, and I don't know that those rules existed everywhere, but that was what was going on there, which is sort of silly if you think about it now, because the equipment, you can use all the different pieces to do lots of things with lots of different bodies. Anytime anybody complains about something to me, I go, imagine if you had one leg.
Yeah.
Do you not get to come? What if
Yeah.
your hand's missing? How are you going to do the
Yes.
100? You don't
Yeah.
do it? No, you come in and you do it. We find a
Yes.
way. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Susannah, what are your thoughts about the foot bar? Is it padded or unpadded?
Oh, I have so many thoughts, Jerry. So in our studio, we have gone through various settings. I went through a passionate period of wanting to rip them all off. And
Why?
I think because I was working with Jay Grimes, and, there was sort of this like, do you remember the shift?
It didn't hurt your feet.
Oh, lots of things hurt me. It doesn't matter. I hate to be that sort of masochist, but I'll do it. But the thing that I found was A, the clients didn't love it, and B, we were just padding the damn bar. So I'm sticking with the padded bar in my business, and if I work on a metal bar, I'm probably gonna pad it.
Yes.
I'm 50 years old. My bones are present, and the sidebar to that is, I was making a joke with my friend. We were calling the feet the lower hands. You know how we're talking about feet and hands, and they're all the same, and da da da. So your lower hands might get more out of a metal bar that they can grip around, right? Because toes are shorter than our fingers. So I wouldn't say one or the other, but from a business standpoint in West Hollywood, we have pads on our foot bars. Thank you, Gratz.
And not everybody has padded feet.
Right.
Some people have very bony feet with very little tissue.
Yeah. So why get so distracted about that? I mean, if we're making this adjustment and that adjustment, this is just a pretty standard adjustment. Plus, we don't walk around barefooted. We wear shoes. So now we've taken the shoes away, and we can have them walk around the studio, which most studios have a hard surface. I mean, socks, grippy socks. We have grippy socks. So there's a little bit of padding there.
What are your thoughts about wearing socks? Some people come in and they insist on being barefoot because that's their training. Maybe they came from modern dance. And in modern dance, I remember we're always barefoot.
Again, I'm split on this. I like it when people wear grippy socks, because I feel that's giving me safety, giving them safety, security, more so than just, first of all, a regular sock. But if somebody really wants to come in bare feet, I'm okay. I let them come in bare feet. If they ask me, I would say my preference is that you wear grippy socks.
And for cleanliness as well.
Certainly. Absolutely. I mean, like,
especially living in Los Angeles.
When your feet, yeah, but if your little sweaty paws go into the leg springs, yeah, it'd be nice if you had socks. Somebody might feel a little better about it. But as a dancer, again, bare feet. When you work out, do you wear socks?
Until it's really warm out, and then I'm barefoot.
Then you're barefoot. Yeah, I wear socks unless I'm going to do like side splits. And sometimes then I really don't want to deal with that sort of fabric causing a weirdness.
With the stomach massage pads or what do you call the pads?
Pads.
Pads.
Do you have a special name for them?
I don't know. We always just called them the stomach massage pads.
It's so funny. I guess that would make sense because it's the most crucial usage of them.
Can you say a little bit about, because you came from a dance background, can you just say a little bit more about the relationship between the feet and the posture?
I think it's, we've both been taught that weight is in the front of the foot when you're standing, right? That little heel lift, because it makes you use your core, right? So when people are trying to have good posture, like my delightful client this morning, 80, plus years, and she's worried about her posture. She's a little kyphotic, whatever. And she goes, but when I throw my shoulders back and I do this, and I was just like, oh my God. So, they're funny, but they're trying to understand what does it mean to have good posture. And for her, I would try and get her in her Pilates stance and lift the heels and find the connection and let the chest be open, top of the head on the ceiling, standing as we are in our footwork. Does she connect that when she's doing her footwork? Maybe a little bit, but like I said before, she kind of maybe made a deeper connection to standing in footwork. So footwork as part of our modality, a part of contrology, these people are so lucky that take Pilates that they get to push on that bar with their toes, their arches, their heels, and do the flexion. Every time they come, their feet are getting worked on. And they're telling you a story, or maybe they're focusing on their breathing and you're giving them some connectivity, but the feet are getting moved. And a lot of people don't get that, even if you're not wildly precise about it. That's amazing that they use that control and place their feet in that way and work their feet. You don't want to fall down. You don't want to roll your ankle. You want to have strength and stability and mobility in your feet. And the footwork is the beginning of that.
Yes. If somebody were to say to you, after you've asked them to stand in their Pilates stance, how do you explain that position? Because if you came from a dance background, we think turnout from the hip joint and then the feet are the last part following that line. That's going to be based on how much rotation you have in your hips. But the Pilates stance is something a little different. I think there's some confusion with that.
Well, the Pilates stance is like a little magical thing for me. So if we go back to the beginning when we were talking about hypermobility and not knowing where to stop, turnout can be the same, right? Maybe you're rolling, what are the rules? Who knows? But when you're in your Pilates stance, you're locked in, right? You're not here. You're not here. These are endings. This is
So here and here, for those listening, Susannah is moving her hands away from each other. So it's indicating a really big turnout.
Right. Like if you put the heels of your hands together, right? Or if you closed your hands together, but they're against, the end and the end. So in the middle is where our Pilates stance is. So when you're locked into your Pilates stance, you're using your glutes, right? Your hips, but you can't use them all the way. We're not crushing the orange. We're not shutting the door. We're holding a position. We're holding the position. And so that locks you into your inner thigh also. And then ideally your knees are together, because if you're bowed, like that position's going to bring those together. If you're not, this becomes a little more challenging to have the heels together, because what are you going to do? Are you going to put a knee in front? Are you going to lock them backwards? Hopefully I can guide them from the hips just the feeling in the hips. And I would guide them down through their knees, and the feet may have to be the heels slightly apart, but as long as they're not locked or knocked, right? I mean, locked or locked back or crossing over, we're trying to align hips, okay? So when you're on the reformer and you're about to do your footwork, let's say your toes, the first thing I'm going to see is if your knees fall open. Your knees fall open. Why? You're resting. You found, the doorstop. And so I didn't give you knees together. So that's a different kind of stopping. So you have to be right there. And I just look for that knee alignment with the shoulders. They do not go wider than the shoulders. And that's the same on tower, you name it, right there. Unless we're working to the side, but this is what we're talking about, right? So I think that I thank Pilates for the Pilates stance all the time, because it explains to me where I need to be.
And you're able to articulate that to different capabilities of your students?
I don't necessarily articulate everything. I will just use my hands, and I'll remind you, don't let your knees fall open.
Don't let your knees fall open. Will help you stay in that tripod position.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't let you, and then you have to hold that position. That's a working position, not a resting position. You see that? That's like the knees wide open. In ballet, you're turning it out, but when you're lying down and your knees are open, you're resting. You're in a rest. So let's not rest. Let's work.
Let's work. How about letting people know where your studio is exactly? So if they live there or they're visiting, they can come have a lesson with you.
Oh, you're so sweet, Darian. We at Cotrone Pilates are located in West Hollywood in California. And we have an online presence on Instagram and Facebook. And we also have a little group space for Pilates mat and dance and things like that we host.
You have a dance studio connected to your Pilates studio.
We have a dance studio, of course. How else am I going to live?
Yes.
But anyway, yeah.
Okay, so people can reach out, CotronePilates.com.
CotronePilates.com. Yeah, info@CotronePilates.com. And we would love to hear from you.
Wonderful. I wish everybody listening a healthy footwork experience. And remember that, as Romana said, footwork can be found throughout the system. And that might be a fun little game to do with students is let's see where in the system we're going to use footwork today.
I'm going to use it. I love it.
Yes, yes. Okay, Susannah, thank you so much for your time.
Darian, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure.
All Things Pilates is produced, written, edited, and hosted by me, Darian Gold. Mastered audio mix, Fabian Romero. Original music, aka Johnny. And we'd love for you to leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. That way you let all of us know what you like about All Things Pilates. Also, if you're interested in helping to support this podcast, become a subscriber. It helps to cover all the back-end costs that accrue when producing a show. To learn more about how you can be part of our growing community, check out our show notes. One must have chaos within to enable one to give birth to a dancing star. Friedrich Nietzsche.